Bitcoin getting rejected at perhaps the worst moment for the short term, and what does that mean for price action to come in the next week, as well as does this rejection change the long-term look that we've been espousing on this channel? That is the topic of today as we get into this very nice, very boring, very uneventful, very non-volatile Saturday. At least that's what typically does happen. I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. I want to once again speak about the free program, the free beginners program that I'm going to be offering up starting in about 2.5 weeks now. There's a sign-up link in the description below. It's 100% free. It basically goes over in a very beginner-friendly format my sort of view on price action and how to ultimately create your own strategy, create your own setups, and then execute those, of course, as well. So if you're interested in such things, again, it's freely available to you down there. We'll also be doing some live streams, some weekly live streams for that. And other than that, we can just jump right into this one. Should also let you know you can get Meta Signals free for 14 days. Everything's free, baby. Everything's free. And we'll probably have some more, or we will have some more announcements on Monday, which I'm actually very excited about. Anyways, first and foremost, Bitcoin, as we went over in yesterday's video, did indeed close below the 38.2 level at 70,800 for CME, thus indicating that Bitcoin once again reject at 72,000, likely to trade sideways and down. We're very unlikely to see a breakout from this region right here. Friday needed to close above that number in order to keep the short-term Bulaw's hopes alive. Don't confuse this, however, with a likely short-term bounce incoming, probably where Bitcoin is at right now. If we go over here to spot price action, you can see Bitcoin's actually just actually beautifully found the median on the daily time frame. So likely a bounce attempt. Bounce attempts can come back up and maybe even test around 70,000 bucks even. At the same time, I do suspect that we probably will see another downside attempt, but ultimately we're not going to see any sort of major breaks today, Saturday, and probably Sunday as well. The downside likely going to be limited somewhere down around yesterday's wick low, which is about 68,500 on a spot price action. But going back on over here to CME, I do believe that this last rejection does hold significant weight actually in terms of where the long-term, or not the long-term, actually, sorry, completely wrong term right there, in terms of where the short term is as of right now. Why is that? Because we have seen, well, yet another rejection, over here on the weekly of the median. So after rejection like that, 1, 2, 3 times, very likely going to play out some sideways and down. Again, that comes in combination with the daily time frame over here getting rejected from the potential breakout levels and likely indicating that we are going to see some more volatility crunch, which within the context of this price action would imply that, Bitcoin comes back down, fills out the middle of this range. So in this case, looking somewhere likely around 65,000 bucks before it's all said and done, maybe even 64, somewhere around there. But I do suspect that this is ultimately going to lead towards a long-term opportunity. Now, we'll get into that topic in a second here, but I also did want to go over just very quickly the daily time frame, daily for CME, again, not trading over the weekend. So obviously we're going to have to wait for these effects to, likely play out. I would suspect maybe Monday, Tuesday, probably Tuesday, as we'll go over in a second. But daily time frame, getting a double dose of the downside stochastic oscillator. Whenever I see something like this, it typically does have some significant follow through, and obviously Bitcoin did fail that pivot yesterday on Friday's closure below 70,400. Again, the CME right here, not trading over the weekend. 5-day and weekly still overall okay, which does give some hopium to the higher term timeframes, but very likely to see a short term correction play out from this region. Now, of course, as long as Bitcoin's above yesterday's low, you can maybe play that game of hopium. I don't think that's very wise personally in this case, but I do know that there are going to be people out there. There's also going to be, I can almost assure you that there's going to be people saying it's a higher low. And as of right now, yeah, it is a higher low, but I just very rarely see these things play out. I'm sure people are going to draw like this and be like, it's an ascending derp right here. And I do like my ascending derps, but I don't think this is the derp that you're looking for, to be honest. I should also be known that the 50% of this range comes in just below 65,000 bucks, and likely the next higher low comes somewhere in this pocket right here. Keep in mind that while we are kind of waiting for the real trading week to start, Saturday, Sunday, technically speaking, a little bit more in favor of positive closures here, but these are very, 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 very small gains or losses that we have seen on average since 2024 began, and really throughout the full history of Bitcoin. As we can see, Saturday, for example, is literally the lowest volatile day, followed by, guess what? Sunday. Crazy. These typically see like half or less than half of the high-low range that the other weekdays, typically see, as you can see in this pane right here. By the way, I think we're just about ready to list this indicator. We're actually going to come out with a nice whole package of just caretaker statistics, which I think is I think is what I'm most excited for. Anyways, yes, so for today, average returns as far as getting a range goes, which by the way, Friday has worked incredibly well yet again. We can see that to the upside from today's open, an average of spot 84, so not even 1%. Would actually put Bitcoin about $70,000, and imagine 1.5% to the downside puts Bitcoin, what do you know, back down around yesterday's low. So that's likely the range for today, probably even the range for Sunday as well. Monday, do we see a real bounce attempt? Perhaps yes. If there's going to be any sort of, in my opinion, surprise and reversal, that would be the day for it to happen. Again, Monday has been the most likely to close positively day for Bitcoin in this segment of the market cycle, and has had some pretty big positive returns as well, I should say. But it is followed by, of course, Tuesday, which is the least likely to close positively, aka the most likely to close negatively, and also has the biggest negative returns. So, what am I kind of looking for here? Sideways over the weekend in this current range, 70,000 to 6850. Saturday, Sunday, probably same thing. Monday, maybe a bounce attempt. If there's going to be any sort of surprise in price action, that's where it likely come around. Tuesday, likely an actual breakdown after a failed Monday rally, which is exactly what we've seen many times throughout the last few months here since Bitcoin put in its March highs. Anyways, going back into the more long-term view, let me just pull it up right here. I did want to harken back to something that we spoke about on yesterday's video, which was a 5-day time frame for CME, which closed yesterday, by the way, as well. And we were observing a signal here on the HPDRO indicator, which had crossed, or yes, did certainly confirm a cross of the zero read, indicating positive momentum on this time frame is starting to be gained. So I've marked off with the red vertical bars all of the times that we've seen this over the past year and a half here. And these have led on to some pretty significant rallies. The only time where it did not get any major continuation was actually right here. And now that I recognize that this is on the wrong bar, there we go. That's the right one. But ultimately, pretty good, generally speaking. And this one's wrong as well. Why am I getting this one wrong here? Maybe I made it on a different time frame or something like that. Or was it on the weekly? Oh, it was on the weekly. That's why. My apologies. Actually did have it right on first glance. Okay, beautiful. But of course, if we go back further in time, we can see that when Bitcoin was in a downside market, in a bear market, these sort of signals did not really get much play. I mean, they did produce some significant bounces, yes, but they were certainly unreliable in the way that we've seen them in general upside markets. So the assumption here is that Bitcoin maintains its long-term upside market, which I do believe that the current market cycle is not done. But I do think that also we're a lot closer to the end of this market cycle than I think most people consider. And assuming that Bitcoin is still in a bull cycle, this should be a pretty reliable signal for CME, which did officially print as of yesterday's closure. So, looking at this right here, yeah, I'm inclined to say, long term, whatever pullback that we get from this current move is likely a major, major opportunity. So of course that begs the question, how far does it pull back? Again, I think somewhere around the 50%, anywhere between the 50% level and the 618 is going to be fair game. There's going to at least be an attempt at the 382, I suspect, in the mid 66s. Probably for another try for a bounce, but I don't think that's the bounce you're going to be looking for. A lot more likely we see some down around here, and this current segment gets drawn out further. So, if we're going to see a move, probably later in June rather than earlier in June. Again, if we're going to see an early move in June, yesterday was really the day for that one to make a legitimate attempt. Instead, we got an actual rejection. So on top of that, it should also be known that based off yesterday's economic data, which I fucking hate talking about, and also hate talking about this asset as well, if you can even call it that, Dixie seemingly digging itself in and putting in yet another higher low. Now, you probably haven't heard me talk too much about Dixie in quite some time, just a dollar index right here. That's because I think it's extremely difficult to analyze, just because it's contingent upon so many different things that are unforeseen events. But at the end of the day, that was kind of its chance to break down too, this past week. And instead of breaking down, it actually is digging in for a higher low, it seems like. So, have to be long-term bullish on this still, I suspect, especially the higher term time frame that I go, the more and more that I think that becomes obvious. So fair enough. I think we'll end things right there. Again, I don't want to make like the full-on correlate between Dixie and other risk-on markets. I think it's a bad thesis to be having, but did want to just mention it very, very quickly, especially for the current move. So just looking at Bitcoin back around here again. Weekend, very likely range plays between 70,000 and 68,500. Maybe an attempt for a bounce, maybe some hope on Monday, but assuming that Bitcoin just doesn't reclaim, where would Bitcoin need to reclaim in order for me to immediately let go of these blasphemous views that I've been having and be looking for some upside? I think the most obvious thing would be, back above Friday's high. Thus negating a rejection, but or on a closing basis, 71,500, if you just want like a full-on number for it. But until that happens, bounces here, in my opinion, are very likely going to lead towards another try to the downside, and that's probably going to be the real opportunity. The real question is, how far down do things get? 64, 65? Does it go even lower than that? Maybe, but take it one step at a time. Bounce is going to be along the way, of course, as well, and it's really just going to be a preparation for this next week or two to come, I suspect. So I'll end things right there. Again, you can get free full access to that upcoming beginners trading program in the link in the description below. It's going to be like highly professionally produced, actually, by a team that I'm working with. It's actually Banter, which they actually sent out a guy to my apartment when I was in Dubai, and we made it all together. It's actually really, really cool. It's also really good for me to like have someone like that by my side who's like running me through. Just like, okay, I like what you're saying here, but this is not going to make sense to people. Can you put it in different terms? Sure. There's a lot of that, which was really, really good for me, because I think at this point, like I've just been doing this for so long. Like I make assumptions that I think people know something that maybe is not as intuitive as what as what I consider. So that was super useful. Again, it's geared towards beginners. If you're a much more advanced trader, I don't know how much you're going to get from this. If you're already in one of my programs, probably also not as well, although it's going to be presented in a more professional manner, in a more like streamlined manner, animations, GIFs, all that good shit. So perhaps that perhaps that'll be of interest. Anyways, I'll end things right there. As always, I wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.